Okay, hold on. Hi, everyone. Greetings. It's Goddess Rhonda here with Goddess Star and our awesome guest, Shetan Noir at the Priestess View.
Hello.
We're glad to be back. There's
Hi,
Goddess
everyone.
Shetan, and we've got Goddess Star here. And we're going
Glad
to
to
have
have
a great
everyone here
show
again
tonight.
tonight. We're so glad to be back.
We are. We have missed you guys. We had a great
Yes,
time at Witch Fest, but we did miss you. And we're going to talk about Witch Fest and interview Shetan and have our panel discussion. I apologize for being late. I've been trying to get, there it goes, Star. I think we're on. So go ahead and mute that. That might be mine, actually. There we go. We're trying to get our other chat room going. Okay, so
okay.
that over there.
Yeah, still don't see me, but it's okay.
All right, don't worry. We will get it all figured out for us for the next time. You know, I always say this, guys. I said it before. I will say it again. One day, Goddess Star and I will have a real studio with real studio people who know how to work everything instead of us trying to figure everything out for ourselves. That is coming one day, I'm sure. But in the meantime, we just have to kind of
Absolutely.
muddle through.
Absolutely.
All right, before we begin, as always, we like to cast a circle of protection around us. Get my candles going here. There we go. All righty. All hail, our lords and ladies of the East, our brothers and sisters. Our brother and patron, the sacred element of air, namaste. Divine honor, love, joy, peace, and respect to thee. I charge thee, please cause a barrier of protection through all of our walls that face your direction, from corner to corner and end to end. Let peace and protection reign herein. Thank you. So it is.
So it is. So mote it be.
So mote it be.
All hail, lords and ladies of the South, my brothers and sisters. My brother and patron, the sacred element of fire. Namaste. Divine honor, love, joy, peace, and respect to thee. I charge you, please cause a barrier of protection through all of our walls that face your direction, from corner to corner and end to end. Let peace and protection reign herein. Thank you, and so it is. So mote it be.
So it is. So it is.
Excuse me.
All hail, our lords and ladies of the West, our brothers and sisters, our sister and patron, the sacred element of water, namaste. Divine honor, love, joy, peace, and respect to thee. I charge thee, please cause a barrier of protection through all of our walls that face your direction, from corner to corner and end to end. Let peace and protection reign herein. Thank you, and so it is. So mote it be.
So mote it be. So it is.
So mote it be.
All hail, lords and ladies of the North, my brothers and sisters, my sister and patron, the sacred element of earth. Namaste. Divine honor, love, joy, peace, and respect to thee. I charge you, please cause a barrier of protection through all of our walls that face your direction, from corner to corner and end to end. Let peace and protection reign herein. Thank you, and so it is. So mote it be.
So it is. So mote it be.
So mote it be.
And we now bring down the divine white light from the sacred source of all well-being and fill this space with peace and protection always. So it is, so mote it be.
So mote it be.
So here we are again. We missed you guys over the past couple of weeks. Before we get into our interview, I wanted to give a big shout out actually to Goddess Star and the efforts that she pulled this Witch Fest together. It is unbelievable. If you didn't get a chance to go, I really hope that you are able to try to come next year. It is just such a wonderful, magical, mystical transformation of a city block in New York City. And I'm going to let you talk a little bit about it, Goddess Star, since it's your
I'm glad to hear what you said all about the magical part, because I have to tell you, I'm not necessarily patting myself on the back, but I am so proud of all of us who came from far and near. When I hear how people came in from India and Hong Kong and UK and Australia, and all over the US that came in for this event, I am so honored to have had you guys all there. And you guys came in and you made a New York City block turn into, just as Goddess Rhonda said, into a most beautiful, magical, the energies, it was in a bit overwhelming because it was so crowded.
Yeah, it was.
But it was so beautiful, and everyone was with big smiles on their faces, and they were enjoying the energies of everything, and the workshops, and the performances, everything. Everyone just kept saying how magical everything was and how beautiful, and the times that they had. So I have to say, we should all pat ourselves on the back because it was a beautiful event because of all of us. It was, I have to say, wow for us. Wow. We represented, I would say, is what happened. We all represented as to who we are, and more power to us. I loved it. And I thank you guys so much, everyone.
It was awesome.
And we're going to see you guys in 2017 when we have a whole new lineup of everybody and everything else. So come on down again.
Please
and a quick shout out to Goddess Tamara and Goddess ER from the chat room, our fans and wonderful with us in the Priestess View, and so many of you that came down that enjoy our show. It was such a pleasure meeting you guys. Such a pleasure. Thank you guys so much for your support with us.
Thank you so much. We really do appreciate it. And I'm just saying hello in the chat room very quickly. There we go. All right. So now we're going to roll in to our interview with the fabulous belly dancing goddess, Shetan Noir. Shetan is a Michigan-based award-winning belly dancer and pagan writer. She's an active member of the Great Lake Witches Council and Motor City Belly Dance Show. She's written many books that we're going to talk about and is working on several new book projects. And she also writes articles for various magazines and websites, such as Circle Magazine and Examiner.com. So, Goddess Shetan, please tell us how you got started on your spiritual journey.
Well, thank you for having me on the show, and it's a pleasure. Let's see. I believe it started back when I was around 16. My views of what was taught in church and what was in the Bible were vastly different than what my mom believed. And so I just found an intolerance for it because there were so many discrepancies, and it left a bad taste in my mouth. So I knew that there had to be something more appealing out there, so I struck out on my own path, my own journey to find something that meant something more to me than what was being taught in the Lutheran Church.
Right.
So, my journey began with just looking into what else is possible in the universe, which led me into doing more and more reading and research into the paranormal and into cryptozoology, and eventually I came across a spiritualist church that was located nearby, and they believed in doing readings and healings, and that really piqued my interest. And so after taking a couple of classes with them and learning about shielding, learning more about using your divine powers, your intuitive powers, then I really started to explore more to see what exactly I could do on my own that meant more to me than just reading out of a book and following the pastor along in a pre-written statement of what you're supposed to believe.
Right. I can dig it. It's funny, too, when you said about the discrepancies, because I was raised in the church as well. And I used to ask people about, various discrepancies that I saw where one thing said one thing and there was a contradiction, and no one ever, it was just like, just read it or just accept it. It's okay, it's no one ever stopped to explain to me what the discrepancies were or how I'm supposed to translate the two completely different things that are going on here. It was just like basically just
Right.
shut up and accept what it says. And I'm wondering now, with all that conflict that goes on in there, I honestly think that they didn't answer me because they didn't know the answer either, and it would have
Right.
affected their coping skills too badly to actually examine it because then a new truth might come out, and I
Yeah,
don't
and
think
that's
I'm ready to accept that.
and I think that's a lot of what happens. People, um, there's the term sheeple, where people act like sheep, and I think that applies a lot with organized religions, because they are just so they're led to believe what is being taught them, and they refuse to look at it from any other way. This is what their parents taught them and their grandparents taught them, so this is what they follow. And I sit back, I'm like, do you even realize that the Bible was written by human men who picked and chose the stories that went into the Bible?
Right.
400 years, that's the earliest that the stories were collected, 400 years after the death of Christ. So you're telling me that these
Right.
stories are 100% accurate, and that this we should follow this to the measure. I'm sorry, but the book of Greek mythology has more merit to me than the Bible.
I can dig
But
it.
it's interesting as you said that because I remembered I think it was 10, 9 or 10 years old in the Catholic Church asking my priest about certain things that I thought, they were reading from the prayer book or their version of the Bible, and I questioned it. And I remember him smacking me across the
Hmm.
face and telling my mom I was being rude. And
Wow,
all I
he
did was ask him,
smacked you?
why is it certain questions about the prayer book and the Bible,
Hmm.
and he did not answer me. He just got upset at me. So it was interesting.
Yeah, and it's like
That
it's.
it's something I don't think they want to answer. That's basically.
Mhm. And
Basically.
like if you go to like Barnes and Nobles and you go to the section that's on religion, there are so many different versions of the Holy Bible that
Right.
it's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous because each each one God religion, as I call it, um, has their own interpretation of what the Bible means, the stories in it, and how they read it and preview it. And it's like, no, you guys, you can't change it to your whim to make it more acceptable to your beliefs. If you're going to stick with something, then stick with something. Don't change it as you go along.
Right.
Like the current trend in the modern churches is they all have these video screens up in these huge elaborate churches where they are, they have they're playing videos, and they have bands, rock bands come in and play, Lutheran music, and I'm like, this is, you're trying to draw in the modern generation, but really this is this I don't think this is great. This is you're trying to influence the new generation by using everything that you said was wrong beforehand.
Right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right about that. And I know
Yeah.
Donna Star she was going to ask you about, your age when you
Your
realized.
age, yeah.
Well,
But
I
at
just
what
started.
age you started? But you already said 16, so that's amazing that you started so
Yeah.
young as well. Wonderful.
I actually think I started a little bit before that because I remember I was going to the local used bookstore and getting books on like Atlantis and the wonders of the earth and stuff like that. And my mom had gotten me a subscription to Fate magazine, because that seemed to be the thing that I was into. And I just remember getting each new issue of that magazine and just reading through it like it was written in gold. And And just knowing that, okay, if that's your, if you're okay with your beliefs and being led like a sheep, then okay.
Right.
I choose not to be a sheep. I would rather be a wolf, and, I'm going to do my own thing.
Absolutely. And I bet that if you really think back, you probably saw signs of that you were a witch, probably like 5 or 6 years old, little things you might not remember probably.
Well, I do remember when my grandmother had passed. She actually came to me. My grandmother on my dad's side. She actually came to me the night that she had passed while I was sleeping. And when I got up the next morning and I went to talk to my parents, they said that they had bad news to tell me. I said, well, I already know Grandma passed. And they thought I had overheard the phone conversation that they had gotten from, the relatives out of state. And I said, no, she actually came, to me in my sleep and told me that she was gone.
Right.
That she had passed and that she was no longer with us.
Wow.
Wow. All right, well, let's get into
You know what? I was looking at the chat room, and Goddess Tamara said the last straw was when she saw the ATM for tides.
in the church. They have an
I didn't know they had
ATM in
that.
churches now? Wow,
I didn't know there was an ATM for tides.
I don't even know what to say.
Another new trend is the churches are putting in cafes where you can sit and drink coffee and eat donuts and socialize at the church with people of like-mindedness. And I'm like, oh, how are you ever going to learn anything new or get any, different viewpoints of the world if you're just speaking and talking to the same people over and over again who it's like a hive mentality.
Right. Well, that's probably their whole purpose, is to insulate everyone so that they don't look outside for answers. They can keep them in their little cage.
Yeah.
Something real as a cage with invisible bars, basically. All right. Well, let's get into some of your books now.
Okay.
Tell me about your book, Hood Magic.
Oh, Hood. Everybody always asks me about Hood Magic, and Hood Magic started out as about 4 or 5 years ago. I always teach at Convocation, which is here in Michigan every February. It's a 4-day pagan event, convention conference at a local hotel, and it's put on by MEC, the Magical Educational Council. And so every year I teach, and this one year I was getting kind of a strange reaction from people, and everybody knew me as the Gothic belly dancer who would come in and teach, but a lot of them didn't know I also practiced. And so I had started teaching a couple of magical classes, and so the Thursday night I taught my first class, and then Friday during the day, as I'm sitting there killing time, I'm looking through the book, and something just told me, you should look at your bio. So I did, and as I'm reading through it, I'm like, it says that I practice Hood Magic, and I'm like, really, guys, Hood Magic? You do know that it's supposed to say hoodoo. And so I'm like, I've got to show this to the rest of my my group. So like I find a couple of my friends and I'm like, did you guys read this? And they're like, wow, that it makes so much sense. And I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, we've had some questions. I'm like, okay, fill me in. And they're like, well, we've been asked if Hood Magic, if because you always wear a black hoodie, if when you pull your hood up, and put it on, if you're casting on people. A lot of people at the drum circle were worried because you did that in there. And I'm like, okay, for one, I'm a belly dancer, and I can fall asleep to drumming at any time because I'm so used to it. It just, that's a lullaby to me. I can fall asleep to that. So yeah, if I'm going to pull a hoodie over my head, I'm going to be sleeping, especially if it's during a drumming circle. I'm like, so we're like, okay, how are we, how am I going to um, make this better? So a friend of mine who's become a closer friend, who's on the MEC Council, David Smith. He was in charge of programming that year. So I grabbed him. I said, David, did you read this? And he's like, he read it and he laughed and he's like, well, just own it. And I'm like, you want me to own this? And he's like, yeah, just own this. I said, okay, next year you're going to get a class called Intro to Hood Magic or Hood Magic 101, and you better put it on for convocation because I'm going to come out with a book called Intro to Hood Magic. And he said, go for it. So that's where the Intro to Hood Magic came up with, from. And so I sat back and I thought, okay, so hood refers to, in my thoughts, it refers to where you live,
Right.
your neighborhood. And it doesn't matter if you're Flint, Detroit, Chicago, New York City, your hood is where you live. And so I actually caught quite a bit of flack from the different pagan communities and the different cultural communities because everybody thought it was just appalling that this white woman had written a book called Intro to Hood Magic. There is another local pagan teacher in my area who has tried to capitalize on the term hood magic. It's been brought up to her several times that I created the concept, and she's tried to differ her meaning of hood magic from what I'm teaching, and I'm like, yeah, you're just coming up with the same thing I'm coming up with. So hood magic really, it applies to where you live, what you have to work with, and how you're going to use what's available to you to make what you're doing happen. So for hood magic, for me it answers a lot of the questions of like people who live in apartment dwellings or urban settings where they might not have access to a backyard where they can perform a full-on ritual with calling the corners and having a bonfire and stuff like that, or growing their own herb garden. So I really do focus on how to make things work for you, and especially if you're a conservative pagan and you don't want, if you have roommates, if you don't want them knowing and you don't want them getting into your stuff, ways that you can do it and still, feel safe and not have everybody knowing your business.
That is so cool. I just find it so hilarious that it was supposed to say hoodoo and they left the ooh off.
I'm like, didn't you guys proofread anything? Because I have the email that where I sent you the info for my bio, and it says hoodoo. So whoever cut and paste this apparently didn't do, or if they retyped it out, they left off a couple of letters in there, guys. You're missing a couple of O's.
That is so funny. And then to have everyone worried that if you pull your hoodie up, you're casting spells.
And
That's
the
awesome.
thing
That's really awesome.
the thing that really got me.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say the thing that really got me is when I started receiving the backlash over me writing, me being a white woman who wrote this book on hood magic. To me, it was absolutely hilarious because when I have gone and taught at other conventions, because of the way I write, because of the way I sound, a lot of people assume that I am a black woman, which from working with the Detroit belly dance crowd, they have, a lot of them are black, women, and they have claimed me as one of their own. They say that I'm black. So I just have this persona. So the thing that I found hilarious about, catching backlash over being a white woman who's written this book was going to a convention and people actually showing up in the class, and their reaction was they were shocked that I was white. They honestly thought that I was a black woman, and they're like, no, you can't be her. Yeah, I'm Shetan. This is me, and they're like, but the double black. I'm like, you don't make me go into the explanation. I am who I am, and it was just a whole 5-minute long discussion at this convention that, you know, because they honestly thought that I was a black woman, and here's this white woman, you know, portraying herself, you know, who, you know, they think is an imposter. I'm like, no, I am who I am. Trust me. I can go grab 5 people on the hallway, and they will tell you exactly who I am.
That is amazing. That's one of my favorite stories, is the story of Hood Magic. But I'll go ahead, Star, and let you ask your question.
Yeah. I wanted to say I like the sound of the chapter, Making Your Own Luck. So I'd love to have you tell us about that chapter.
Well, in making your own luck, a lot of times, you know, you have to work with what you've got. I'm going to relay a story from Father's Day that is, I think it just shows how luck can work for you or work against you. So this past Father's Day, I had taken my dad and my brother out for the day, and we went to a local car museum, which was really cool, and then we went to the casino. Now, I've had a pulled hamstring since March, so I've been on various pain medications. As we all know, when you're in slight pain or when you're in major pain, you're sending out energy.
Right.
So I'm sitting at this 1-penny slot machine, you know, just playing one line at a time, and I'm really feeding my energy into the machine because I'm like, I need you to hit. I need you to hit. You know, I got some bills to pay. I need you to hit. And my leg, I can feel the muscles cramping. I can feel, you know, I've got to get up and walk around, but I don't want to leave this machine. So I just happened to look up, and here comes my dad walking down, you know, the aisle. And I said, Dad. I said, sit down at this machine, play it. I've been feeding it money. I've been putting my, you know, energy into it. We call it voodooing now. You know, I voodoo the machine. So he said, okay. I said, I got to walk around. My leg is just, you know, acting up. So I no sooner walk away, I'm gone 5 minutes at the most. I come back, and my dad has this great big grin on his face. Everybody's congratulating him. And I'm like, well, what did you do? He's like, oh, it hit all 9. As soon as you walked away, it hit all 9 lines, and I won $4,500. And I'm like, you're kidding me. And this woman who was sitting a couple of chairs down was ready to beat him with her purse because she, you know, you stole that woman's money. I said, no, he's my dad. And she said, oh, well, your daughter just gave you the best, you know, Father's Day, you know, present ever. And so it was like, you know, and I'm looking at the machine going, you know, I hope you malfunction. I hope you fry tonight, machine, because I put so much energy into you. And then I no sooner walk away, and then my dad, you know, puts in $20 and, you know, does a couple of max bets, and it hits, and I'm just like, and this is why we don't voodoo machines anymore, because, you know, if I don't win, then somebody else who comes in behind me is going to win.
There you go.
So, you know,
at least it was your father. It could have been worse. If it had been a stranger, it would have been much worse.
Yeah. So I'm glad I had, you know, caught his attention and got him to come over and play the machine, you know, so I could go walk around. But it's like, you know, I told him, I said, you know, I hope you love this, you know, Father's Day, and this, you know, you really cherish it, because I don't think I can ever give you a better Father's Day. But it was just the way that the luck played out that day. So, you know, when you're making your own luck, it really has to, you know, what you're putting into it, and, you know, it's a lot of it has, you know, you can have the right herbs, the right oil, do the candle, you know, magic spell, which incidentally I had done a money magic spell the week before.
Right.
Using a nice big green, you know, glass, you know, candle, and, you know, money drawing oils and some luck oil, and wrote on it exactly what I wanted, which was, you know, for money to come to me, and it came after me. and luckily my dad was there to catch it. So, you can do everything right, and it's either going to land in your lap, or it's gonna dive bomb 5 feet away from you, and you're gonna have to reevaluate how you did things, or see how you can turn this into a plus for you.
Right. Absolutely. I love that story. That's very funny. It really is.
Yeah.
Tell us about your book, The Other Side of the Coin: Spells to Enrich Your Bank Account and Life, Volume 1.
Okay, so that was the book that I probably spent the most time on in my series of magical practical books, because as I started to do more and more research into prosperity magic, abundance, what people consider wealth. Because to us, wealth is having a couple thousand, maybe a couple $1,000,000 in the bank. But to a farmer out on the plains in India, wealth is having a healthy herd of,
Right.
of cattle. That's wealth. So in different cultures throughout the world, in different countries, wealth means different things. Wealth could mean having a healthy family. Having a son to marry off. And you're blessed with all daughters. Wealth is what you perceive it as. So in doing my research for this book, I really had to look into all the different elements of prosperity and wealth, and what other countries, other cultures, other ethnic groups did to bring them wealth. And at a certain point, because I do all of my books and all of my notations on index cards, and when I had reached a card limit of 500, I was like, okay, I've got so much information now, I need to start processing this and fitting it into chapters. So it was really interesting to see how the hoodoo way of gaining prosperity and abundance and wealth is different than what some shopkeeper in China would do to bring prosperity and wealth into their storefront.
Right.
Or what someone from another magical faith would do, because I've noticed this with hoodoo, our definition of what herbs do kind of clash with traditional European magic or ceremonial magic's definition of what a magical herb does. Chamomile is used very heavily in hoodoo for gambling and to bring you success in gambling. Other magical practices see that as a medicinal herb for helping you sleep. So it's all in how you use it and how you have it benefiting you.
Right.
This is
Awesome.
true. This is true. This is absolutely true. One of the things I wanted to ask you was, what is your favorite prosperity herb and stone combination that you would use?
Okay, well, for my herbs, I always do really, really well with my herb garden of growing mint plants. Orange mint is always a very strong grower in my garden, and orange mint is used, you can use it in a lot of money magic spells. Cinnamon basil is another excellent money herb, because I call it a double action or double powered herb, because it's cinnamon and it's basil, which are both money drawing, and it's growing as one. So it's a very powerful herb for using in money magic. It has a very strong smell, so you have to kind of learn to love that smell. But it works really, really great. Now for minerals and gems, I really like pyrite. A lot of people will say, "Oh, it's fool's gold. You're only, you're never going to get the real thing if you use pyrite." But I'm like, well, pyrite is a real, is a real mineral. It's an actual thing. just because people misinterpret its value does not mean that it misrepresents wealth.
That's
It's, gold is only as valuable as what people make it. Same with diamonds. Um, so, I really like pyrite for that. I've never been a big fan of gold just because I think there's so much greed and corruption associated with gold that if you do use gold in a spell, you're setting yourself up for some adverse reactions of you might get the prosperity that you're asking for, but it might be stolen away from you just as fast as you get it.
Mm-hmm.
So
right.
I would rather, if I'm going to use a metal, I would rather use silver, which is kind of passed over, or even copper because copper was in high demand throughout the world at several different points. It's in high demand
Right.
here in Michigan and Detroit. They steal it out of houses all the time and scrap it.
Well, copper
That's
represents
really
Venus, and I love pyrite. I have my little copper wrapped pyrite actually that I keep on my desk. So, to those who are such literalists that you think this is fool's gold, believe what you need to believe. I have found this to be extremely helpful
yeah.
to me, and I
Mhm.
will continue to use it.
And for me, if I'm going to use
And it's
gold, then I'm going to actually go out and prospect for it and find it myself because that way I've done the work to find it and I own it and I know that it hasn't come from anybody else's hands. It doesn't have a prehistory of violence or anything like that.
You know what? That's actually pretty cool because then it's going straight to you right from the earth. Like there's no
Hmm.
middleman in there to put their energies into it. And there are places that you can go and do your own prospecting.
Yep. Yeah, I'm big into doing. I love going rock hounding and prospecting and stuff like that. So I'm always on the lookout for a new adventure with doing that stuff.
Awesome. So now tell us about your book, To Fight Fire with Fire.
So to fight fire with fire, a lot of people. Um, it depends on how you look at it. Most people will think it's a protection magic book.
Hmm.
It was also written with the interest of being a book for working and protecting yourself from the paranormal entities. A lot of the stuff that's in the book can be applied to doing house cleansing, banishing spirits, all of that. So when I was writing this book, I was because I work in both fields. I'm just as much into the pagan community as I am into the paranormal and cryptozoology. And there comes a point when you've gotten so many requests to, hey, can you come over and kick the entities out of the bathroom because they're having a party at 3 a.m. When you get that request so many times, you're like, you know what? We're just going to write a book on this, and you guys can buy the book. You can take the information. You can go from there, and if need be, then call me, and I'll come over and do what I can.
Awesome. I actually like that you wrote a book specifically designed to remove entities because a lot of people, they'll walk around with their smudge to get rid of negative energy, which we need negative energy. We're batteries, I should say adverse energies, but a lot of people will do that, but they might have a serious issue with a real entity that is not going to be impressed with your sage smudge. I'd have to kind of get a little down and dirty with it. So I think it's great that you wrote a book to help people with that and to help take their fear away from that entity because that's what they really feed on. That's what gives them their strength is that you're going to be scared
Yes.
to death of them. But when they see that you're not, they're just really a bunch of bullies. And once they see that you're not, they'll go away. So I think that's awesome that you wrote that specifically with that in mind because a lot of people do have problems. They hear things go bump in the night and they become afraid. And they don't know what to do. So I think that's great that you wrote that.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And what is your favorite herb and stone again? but this time for protection combination that you use.
Okay, I like using, and it depends on the situation that I'm dealing with, but I do have growing in my garden peppermint, which is great for protection. Generally, when I come home from a pagan-based event, the first thing I will do is run a bath and put some crushed peppermint in it, because that will remove any magical ick off of you and sends it down the drain. So that, peppermint is very important. Hyssop is another one. Hyssop is an herb that was, they anointed a sponge with vinegar and hyssop, and, allowed Christ to drink that while he was on the cross. So a lot of people contribute hyssop to being a holy, blessed herb. Which does work, in our favor as pagans. Hyssop, you can get it at the farmers markets and grow it yourself. So I do have hyssop and peppermint. I have white sage growing. That comes in really handy when you want to do your smudgings. But white sage alone will not do the job. You always have to combine it for something else. So if it's just paranormal that I'm working against, I will generally do a sage, a smudge bundle of white sage, rosemary, and cedar. And all of those combine. White sage draws on the Native American belief that white sage is it's actually antibacterial, and it removes negative things from your space. Rosemary will also do that. Cedar. Now, cedar, it's interesting because if you've ever been to a cemetery, you will notice that most cemeteries are lined with cedar and oak trees because they prevent the spirits from leaving the cemetery.
Oh,
which is why I like cedar, because cedar will remove a entity from your area. And once you've got, and it's very important because when people do smudgings, you have to know how to do a smudging right. You have to work the whole house. Right. You have to open up the doors and the windows so that stuff has a way to get it, escaped. And then after you've done all the smudging, you need to put down salt and brick dust over openings so that it's sealed. And then after you've removed all that, you have to fill that space with something better, something more positive. So a lot of people, they do the smudging, but then they don't do anything else, and they wonder why things return, why they come back stronger.
Right.
Well, you didn't do the whole process.
Right.
Yeah, you have to. You have to. I mean, even the Catholic priest, when they do, or even regular people, they're advised by the Catholic priest for anything that they remove or any ground that has had a lot of death or different things. They tell them to sprinkle, pack a lot of salt in there to close it off. So they always have advice to putting down something to prevent it from coming back, or creating malevolent entities after that. So yeah, you have to close it off.
Yes.
Yeah. So those are the herbs that I recommend. Now for protection, I like hematite, magnetic hematite, just because it's if you wear it as a bracelet or anything like that, it has very strong protective qualities. And once you charge a piece of hematite to do, protection work, it's kind of like wearing a guard dog on you.
That is very, way cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, now tell us about your book, Sticks and Stones.
Sticks and Stones was my very first book that I wrote for the Magical Pagan series. It's kind of like a basic intro to folk magic and hood magic, or hoodoo magic, and it gives you a basic outline of how to do spells, what herbs and stones you're going to use, some of the psalms that you're going to be using more of, and kind of just, gives you a format of, okay, this is what you do with, folk magic and hoodoo. And, it's a lot about, you have you pick your herbs, you pick your stones, you pick the color candle you're going to use, or if you're going to do, a candle magic spell or a grist bag or a mojo bag or anything like that. But you also have to put your intent into it and really feed your energy into it, so that it knows what it's doing, which is why a lot of people, when they do their poppet spells or anything like that, they say, well, it's just, it hasn't done anything. It's just sitting there doing nothing. Well, did you tell it what its job was? Did you, give it meaning for its life? Well, no, it's just, no, you have to tell it. You literally have to tell it.
Wow. And since that's your first book, I have to ask you, you must have a favorite spell in that book. And what is that spell?
My favorite spell from that book is the Bloodhound spell.
The which one? I'm sorry?
The Bloodhound spell.
Oh, wow. Okay. And explain that one. That sounds interesting.
Okay. The Bloodhound spell, a lot of people do when they think that they've been cast against, or they've been had somebody, doing bad, magic towards them. A lot of people will do a return to sender spell, or a swifting of energy spell, or something to send it back to the person who's causing the problems. The only thing is, once you do that spell, you don't really know who it was who did it. You might have a strong intuition of who did it, but with the Bloodhound spell, when you do the Bloodhound spell, if you've ever seen a bloodhound tracking or any type of hunting dog or anything, they're not quiet. They make so much noise when they're on a trail that you can't ignore it. And so that's what the Bloodhound spell does. As it's tracing its way back to the person who caused you problems, it's making it known to the universe. And it's very, very hard for them to hide what they did, because this spell is creating such a ruckus that they don't even realize that they're being tracked. So if you pay attention and you notice that somebody's posting, oh, this happened to me and that happened to me, and oh my God, this is going on, and they're just reporting bad thing after bad thing after bad thing, or they're throwing a temper tantrum online, or amongst their friends, then you're like, now you've got my attention, so now I'm going to start, I think you're the one who actually did this. And the once the Bloodhound spell has got them, then it's just a big fireworks show, if you want, of just them having a meltdown, and there's really no way for them to cover their tracks then.
So you're like setting the dogs on them. I love that.
Yes.
I was thinking in the sense of like how the bloodhounds are after them. When they hear that the dog's howling and coming at them, they tend to, the fear builds up, and they're like, oh my gosh.
That's right.
And they know they're going to be caught, kind of a thing, So that's really, really interesting. I love that.
And the great thing about the bloodhounds is, not only are they one of the world's greatest tracking dogs, I believe they are like the #1 tracking dog in the world, but they love the sound of their own voice, which is typical of any loud-mouthed hound breed, but they love the sound of their own voice. So the better they're doing on the trail, the more sound they're making. And so you can hear them coming a mile away. So it's really, I love that spell, because it's just like, okay, let's let some bloodhounds loose on this, and, see who, comes out of the woods yelling.
I love that. I think that's really awesome. I'll have to try that spell, because I really like it a lot.
And that spell, I say it's a bloodhound spell, but really, you can use any loudmouthed hound breed: beagles, basset hounds, coon hounds, anything that can follow a trail and loves to make noise, any of those will work. You know, and you just need, you know, some of their hair, which you can get from petting them or brushing them. So, you know, once they're on the trail, you know, it's hard to, you know, lose them. So you can use use the hair off of any of, you know, like I said, the loudmouth tone breeds, you know, who love to talk. Bloodhounds, coonhounds, beagles, basset hounds, all of those are you know, loudmouths. So
That is very cool.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I love it.
Now I want to ask you about your sequins plus a hot glue gun equals a belly dance costume, because I'm an amateur belly dancer, not professional like you or anything, but I do know when I was buying my belts and my scarves and everything, I could never find a belly dance bra that I could afford because I'm very heavy busted, large breast woman.
hmm
And so they cost so much money. The bigger your boobs are, the more money they cost. I mean, literally, I was quoted hundreds of dollars, like $350, and you know that's a big investment to me. If I was a professional like you, I might make that investment, but dancing around like
and that's
not
cheap.
spending that. That's
And
cheap.
that's actually considered cheap for a belly dance costume.
Wow.
Um, I've gone to different belly dance events and competitions, and if you can find a costume that fits for $350, it's usually on the used table. The costumes that they bring in from Egypt and from the Middle East, generally they are designed for small women,
Right.
size, you know, 8 and under, with nothing more than a B cup. So your selection is very narrow, and generally these costumes, just for the bra and belt set, can be $700. That's not even adding on a skirt or a Turkish vest or a choli or anything like that. So what, you know, once you've gotten all of your costume elements together, you can actually end up paying like $1,000 for a costume that you really, really better love, because that's a huge investment.
Right.
There was when I first got into belly dancing, there was a U.S.-based belly dance costume maker down in the Florida area who everybody uh, just, you know, they said they were the ones to go to. You know, everybody thought they were amazing. Well, I ordered a costume from them. They said I would get it in 8 weeks. I got it in 16 weeks.
Wow.
Had ordered a silver on silver costume, which was silver sequins and beading. It was silver on white when I got it. The bra was a soft cupped bra, not a hard cupped bra.
Wow.
And they had undercut the belt by 2 inches.
Wow.
And my hips are what my hips are. It doesn't matter how much weight I lose or gain. My hips are what they are. And you know, that's 2 inches that, you know, and they charged us, you know, $350, because I went in on it with my brother and my mom, as my Christmas present for that year, and we were very disappointed, because we ordered it the week before Thanksgiving and we got it a week after Easter.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
um, you know, I decided, well, if I'm going to really stick with this and um, really, you know, do belly dancing full time and be a performer and everything, I need to learn to make my own costumes, because I'm not paying out $350 again for a costume that doesn't fit, does nothing for my body, and isn't even attractive looking.
Right.
So that costume is actually in a nice storage bin, um, you know, down in my craft room. So with my book on how to make belly dance costumes, I was actually at a burlesque show as a performer, and one of the people backstage was teaching her burlesque troupe how to make pasties. And I'm watching this, and I'm thinking, I could make belly dance costume, appliques with that. And so I watched her method, and I actually, she let me make, a pair of pasties. Um, and I was like, okay, now, knowledge is power. So now I have this to work with. So I started making my own belly dance costumes, and it became very, very, very addicting. And at the time, a friend of mine uh, worked at a local costuming store, and they sold sequins by the yard, and they had every color of, that you could think of. So I was going in there because it was just down the road from where I was teaching classes. So I would go in there every week and was getting, 20 yards of sequins at a time, and 19 cents a yard, perfect price, and I was making my own costumes. Um, and so every event I would have a new costume, and it just became so easy that I thought, well, if I'm going to make all these costumes anyways, I might as well document the process and make a book out of it, and so that other people who don't want to spend, an outrageous amount of money on a costume, um, and have it not fit or not even in colors that they like, or they just have to settle for whatever. This way that they can make their own costume and actually, use a bra that fits them correctly, and looks really nice on them, does wonders for their cleavage, and they can design the belt. They can they can put the appliques on. They can choose the colors, and you can create your own perfect belly dance costume.
I think that's awesome. I'm actually going to, because I love creating things, and I'm also very frugal, so I'm not going to spend $350.
Right.
If I'm going to spend $350, I would spend that on a lot of supplies so that I could then create a lot of things with that. I got my sewing machine right up there, and
Yep.
that's something that I would love to do, because I was really dismayed about that. I mean, you could get scarves and things, just for, shimmying around your living room on eBay for fairly cheap. But if you want a real costume, a real one, it's really like you could buy a car practically with that money that you would invest in one costume.
And
Yeah, that's true.
and FYI to people who are listening to this, who are into belly dancing and want to become belly dancers, a belly dance costume is not see-through harem pants, a coin scarf bra, and a coin belt around your waist. That is not a belly dance costume. I'm sorry. You can be upset with me if you want, but that is not a professional belly dance costume. You are not going to walk into a restaurant or a performance and have you be taken seriously if that's what you're going to wear on stage.
Right.
They want you in either a beaded sequined costume with a gorgeous skirt, and your boobs are under your chin. Yeah, that's what a belly dance bra does. Um, or you're going to be in your tribal gear, and tribal is not. I mean, you'll see tribal belly dancers and attire more at festivals, because it's got more of the gothic look. It's more, you can use more modern music, rock music, stuff like that. A lot of people are performing fire with, tribal style. But if you're doing, cabaret, you have to look the part. You have to have, the pretty hair. You have to have the beautiful, I want to say superhero-esque almost costume, where it's like, how's that staying on her? The bra, the belts, and I'm seeing, some of these bras and belts that the designers that are coming out with that are more and more risque, and I'm like, okay, guys, this is fine for the American belly dance crowd, but at a certain point, there has to be some ethics, and you really have to have some modesty. So, you can make it as sexy as you want, but understand that sooner or later, if you're wearing that costume, you're going to be confronted by other belly dancers, particularly the old-style teachers, traditional teachers, who are going to confront you about sexualizing the art of belly dance.
Right.
And that's not a fun conversation to have if you're, not prepared for it.
Right. I can dig it. For
Absolutely.
sure.
It makes sense. Necessity is what they say. Necessity is the mother of invention. You got to
That's
come up with
right.
things on your own.
Yes.
I think we've all done it in different times.
Absolutely.
And kind of going off the topic a bit about the belly dancing, I had spoken to Goddess Rhonda, and I heard that recently you went through a personal tragedy at the hands of a drunk driver, and I'd love to have you tell us about that.
Sure. It happened about a year ago. It's actually, it's not when you've been hit by a drunk driver. Um, it's it's not a quick process of getting anything done towards them. This particular person blew twice the legal limit. He was driving without insurance, without a license, and he fled the scene of the crime after he had hit me. Fortunately, before he took off out of the parking lot, I had taken a picture of his license plate and his vehicle, and the officer who responded knew exactly who he was because he had done this previously before. So
Right.
he actually had an officer waiting outside the trailer park that he lived in to intercept him. Um, so
Wow.
even though he was arrested and put in jail, the actual trial process took months. And meanwhile, um, he he caused me a miscarriage, which I really don't like to talk about, but he did, and that I'm 42 years old, and so that's something that will never be replaced. That child's life is irreplaceable because I'm 42. I'm not going to go there again. Done and over with. And when I got into the actual court for his sentencing, his wife, who didn't know who I was, comes in, and she is loudmouthed, obnoxious, and pregnant.
Wow.
And so I'm like, wow, you took something irreplaceable from me, and yet you're going to go on with your life like you didn't do anything wrong.
Wow.
He caused over 32 or over $3,200 worth of damage to my vehicle, um, and that wasn't even like touching it, because when I went in to have my vehicle, the estimate done on it to see what the repair was, as the gentleman's looking at my tires, he's like, you need to have your at least your front driver's side tire replaced because I can see structural damage, and all it's going to take is you to hit one bump, and you're going to go lose control of this vehicle and possibly die. So that was instantly, within a week of him hitting me, $450 that was out of my pocket.
Wow.
And the thing that really irritated me was my dad 2 years before that had put brand new tires on my Jeep as a birthday present. So here I am replacing almost brand new tires because of what this kid did. And so it's been a long, drawn out process. And you would think that the prosecutors and the court is going to work on your behalf, and really you have to be your own detective. You have to do all of this stuff for yourself, because I found out that after getting the runaround from the victim advocates that he wasn't paying the restitution, that he was court ordered to pay me, and so I had to track him down, which luckily he lived about 2 blocks away from where my cousin's trailer was. So I had to, see, okay, yeah, he is coming in and out of the house, and, make phone calls into the police, make, phone calls to the prosecuting attorney's office, because I found out he had broken his probation by drinking and driving again.
Wow.
Restitution.
Wow.
Um, he was leaving state, and so it took them a while to finally actually, catch him. And then he sat in jail for 30 days, was once again court ordered to start paying restitution, which he played the court again. And they get, and that's coming into January of this year. Um, and so, every week I'm calling into the prosecutor's office and the victim advocate saying, what's going on? I want to know what's being done on my behalf. And they weren't really doing anything. All they would say is, well, he has a court date on such and such day. If he doesn't show up, there's a bench warrant. Or, well, once he got his tax returns, he moved him and his family out of state. And so he basically fled the state without paying me anything. But he had enough money to repair the vehicle that he hit me with, move his family out of state, and he was working a factory job while doing it. So, it's really, really, it's so frustrating and aggravating to me that somebody makes the decision that they're going to drink because that's what they want to do, and then they get behind a wheel and decide that they're going to take off and go joyriding or whatever his purpose was that night. He was actually pulling onto my road when he hit me, which is nowhere near where he lives. He actually lives in a trailer park that's about 2 miles away. And so he had made this decision that he was going to do all these things, and yet he will not accept the responsibilities of his actions.
That is just awful, and
that is very sad.
that is really very
He sounds like a repeat offender. He's repeating stuff and doing things over and over, and in a sense, he's getting away with it. He's basically getting away with it.
He is, because now he is in another state, and I know just from his behaviors of when I was tracking him and keeping tabs on him that he has no problem drinking and driving. He thinks it's perfectly acceptable. So what's going to happen when he does this again, but this time the result is, he kills somebody?
Right.
Wow.
How is this, how is this justice to that life, that next life that he takes? Because he has a set doing this.
That is just awful. That truly is just awful. What would you like to see?
I was looking at the chat room, and Goddess Tamara said that she was she took some classes in criminology school, and she said one would not believe how many holes are in the justice system, the criminal justice system. It's like some damn Swiss cheese, because there's so many ways that people can get around it, and people like this gentleman sounds like he knows. He knows how to work that system, and he repeats it because he really doesn't care. He keeps getting away with it. Exactly. If you're saying that the police officer was at his trailer park waiting for him, but they keep putting him in jail, and he just keeps coming out and repeating his offenses, and in the meantime, there are tragedies like yourself and what happened to you.
Yes.
And I have to say, you're a very strong woman, and God has blessed you in so many ways, and I'm so sorry for your loss with everything, and that's really sad that happened to anyone. Not just you, but anyone in general.
And these are people with the mentality of even though they caused the accident, they did nothing wrong. On one occasion, when I was over at my cousin's house, I had walked out of her trailer, and we both caught his wife letting the air out of my Jeep's tires.
That's awesome.
And when we confronted her, she was walking up and down the street, swearing, cussing us out. Her minivan was parked in the middle of the street with her children jumping around inside of it. They didn't have any seatbelts on. She got into the minivan. They were still jumping around, peeled off down the street, driving recklessly with children jumping around in her minivan. And so I called the police and made a police report on her then. And this is a woman who came out, and was arguing with the cop that I was taunting her when we caught her letting the air out of my tires unprovoked.
Wow.
So it's just this, this mindset of, these people who they think that they can do, these behaviors and there's no consequences, and it just it's very, very aggravating, because now I'm you know, my Jeep is how I get everywhere, and it's the only thing I have that's paid off, that, you know, is completely, you know, owned, and, you know, that Jeep, you know, should be lasting me for another 5 or some years. You know, it's a 13-year-old Jeep, but, you know, it takes a lot to kill a Jeep. But, you know, now I have to worry about, okay, um, what's going, you know, am I going to have problems because of, you know, him hitting me, that are going to slowly creep up, and, you know, it's just going to, you know, eat away at my Jeep until, you know, it finally dies and I have to, you know, go out and buy a brand new vehicle, or get a used vehicle that hopefully, you know, lasts me.
What
Right.
bothers me is that the constantness of him and his wife just assuming that he is pretty much above the law, you know, that he can get away with anything and there are no repercussions involved, so he can be cavalier about it. And, you know, he seems to know the justice system really well and how to get around it. And until he is actually given a time for him to feel the justice of what he's done, or any recriminations of what he's done, he's going to keep repeating this. He's going to keep doing things like this because he knows or thinks that he can get away with it.
That's right.
And if there's a way to have him serve some sort of a justice, or maybe learn to feel empathy. I love it that, you know, I remember one Charmed episode where I think it was Charmed, where they allowed the person to feel what that other person that they had done damage to, feel all of what they felt, the hurt and the pain and everything, you know, that they had to, that was their lesson. They were getting away with everything and they had to learn how to feel all of that. And that taught that person how to change. You know, it made a difference. Sometimes maybe that's what you need to do. I don't know. But it's, you know, it's very sad because then you feel like if you don't have any justice given for anything at all.
Right.
And I really
Exactly.
very
You
sad
know,
about
and that's how I feel. You know, we went through the whole court process, and he did serve some jail time. But to me, how is that punishing him? He's basically sitting, you know, doing nothing, and it's not causing him any problems. You know, he doesn't care. You know, he's going to sit in jail and twiddle his thumbs, and meanwhile, here I am trying to make it to different events, trying to, you know, go do travel stories, and trying to go teach classes, workshops, and I
Right.
have to worry about, you know, is my mode of transportation safe enough to get me from point A to point B and back again?
Right.
And, you know, and then I have to, you know, and it just becomes, you know, when you're sitting there and you're thinking, you know, if this person would have just paid what they owed, you know, both, you know, he would be cleared and freed, and he would have paid off his debt to me. But no, instead, he has a debt with the actual the county courts because of the bench warrant and all the fines and court fees levied against him, and he owes me. So, um, and the fact that he's left means that, you know, even if he's arrested in the state that he's in, they won't extradite him up here to our court systems in this state. They're going to prosecute him down there, and for whatever, you know, crimes he has, you know, committed down there, and then he's going to be in their legal system. So really, you know, unless he does, you know, take a, you know, a paranormal slap to the head, you know, maybe one of my ancestors can, you know, give him a good whack. You know, it's really, you know, he's made the decision that he's not going to pay this, and he's going to leave me with expenses that, you know, I have to figure out a way to cover, and, you know, out of pocket for a decision that he made, which cost me.
That's
it.
just
Wow.
awful.
Yes.
What would you like to see happen to
Pretty.
you?
I would like to see him pay for what he did. I would like him to pay off his debt to me. That first and foremost. Now, anything else that the universe or karma wants to unleash upon him, it's more than welcome to, because I do believe that there's going to be more victims from his behaviors that are going to suffer because of him and the decisions that he makes. So I think for the rest of his life, the universe and karma are going to be after him, and he's going to have, when it comes down to it, he's going to have a huge debt to pay, not only in this world but in the next. And he's going to have to suffer that.
Right. As he should. As he should.
Absolutely. Aside from the physical and emotional trauma that you had to go through, how has this impacted you financially? Or I don't know if it has or not, but how, I'm sure it
Well,
has.
well, financially, it's um, it's actually, it's like I said, it's kind of a, do I go to this event or do I not? Is somebody that I can count on at home, so that if I have to, have somebody come get me, I have that, available, or, am I going to have it towed home? It's been, it's I've given up a couple of, recent trips, because it's like, okay, this location is 5 hours away, and I'd really, really like to go to it, but what if I get down there and, for whatever reason, something goes out on my Jeep and I can't make it back?
Right.
Because of damages that were done to it by this driver, who chose to drink. And so it really does, my decision-making process of, events that I'm going to go cover, what I'm going to do, really, it does tie in with my Jeep of, just, doing a 2-hour trip away. It's like, okay, is it the road? Is it the Jeep? Is it, I'm always, consciously, being aware of, what the Jeep's doing, what conditions I'm driving in. Not that my Jeep's unsafe, but, I'm trying to make it last, for as long as I can. Now I did open up or start a crowdfunding site on You Caring, in hopes that maybe somebody will help donate so I can cover costs for repairs and get, little by little, the Jeep fixed, or, just be able to make repairs to it as they come up, and, keep it running.
Right. And how can people contribute to your You Caring crowdfunding?
Well, the site that it's on, after I looked at a couple of the different crowdfunding sites, the You Caring one seemed to really resonate, because it does a lot with people who have suffered, tragedies, who have, emergencies that have come up, and they allow you to keep 100% of what is donated. They don't take out a percentage or a fee. And if people actually want to donate, they can find it, if you friend me, or if you're friends with me on Facebook. You can find it, my Facebook page, which is Shetan, Shetan Noir, Noir, and you'll find the You Sharing page for my crowdfunding on my Facebook page. If you want to go on to You Sharing, let's see, it is www.youcaring.com, and then slash, and then TRACYHERRELL, and that will lead you to my crowdfunding page for that. But the easiest way is to go through Facebook and friend me on Facebook, and find the link on my Facebook page.
Awesome. I hope you get a lot of relief for that. I really do.
Yeah. Some of the things I just wanted to quickly say, what has been said in the chat room. between goddesses Tamara and goddess Jay. They said, you know, along with the criminology, she said, I live in New Mexico where DUI and DWI run rampant because of the unaccountability.
Mhm.
And then they went on to say, she sees this is why I am very, very, very careful about when to use magic, because if I was hot-headed, I would have torn him and his wife up. And then Goddess Jay suggested maybe an instant karma spell. And it's just basically they're going back and forth about how careful they have to be about using different types of magic for this, because the justice system doesn't seem to cover any of it. So they're saying, you know, basically, this is the perfect sort of situation that requires where magic should come in
Yes.
handy to try to use it, just figure out how to use it, how to word it, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So it's
And I
interesting
have
how everyone
and I have done
and
different works to try to promote him, you know, push him into, you know, paying. I currently have his name and picture sitting in a couple of different bottles of Pay Me Now oil. Um, you know, different ones with different intensities to them. One actually has a ghost pepper in it, so that, you know, he's getting a little bit of a you know, burn in him to, it's burning a hole in his pocket to, you know, pay me. But then again, he might be too drunk to even realize, you know, that this is going to continue unless he, you know, does right. And that's, you know, I've talked to a couple different magical practitioners around me, and, you know, that's been the general consensus of either the universe and karma is going to push him into making the payments because of shit that happens to him, and he realizes that, you know, he can't keep on doing what he's doing, or he's just going to keep himself in this stupor of, you know, he can do what he wants, and the consequences that he, you know, causes are of no difference to him. He
right.
just, yeah.
It's
So
very, very sad and very much a conundrum.
it is.
Um,
Well, you know, I have
it's quite a conundrum, really. You know, it's hard to say what to do or not do. Sorry, Goddess Rhonda, what was that you said?
I was saying that I'm a big believer in really just recently, and I found it to be so effective without having to do all kinds of, you know, really strong work to get somebody back for wronging me. Just to quickly, on my way to New York, I had originally a few months ago I had rented a car. It was a really good deal. It was I could have the car for the week in New York for it was like for $350 for the whole, or $300 for the whole week, which is a good deal. And so I did everything I was supposed to do, and they made me pay $220 up front and said you owe us $89 at the counter, and I had my email that said that. And so I went to I made sure I had enough on my credit card, because you need a credit card to rent the car. And I made sure I had enough on there to cover it. And so I went down there and I said, you know, I only owe you guys $89, right? And they're like, yeah. And then he goes, well, we're going to charge you an additional $200. And I said, why? And he said, well, you know, we need a deposit for it. And I said, well, that's not on the email, and I don't have enough on my card, so let me figure something out. So what I was thinking was I could cut down, like, say, rent the car for 3 days, and then I'd have time, because it's Friday night. It's too late for me to transfer any money over. And I said, you know,
Right.
maybe on Monday I could put some more money on it and re-rent the car or whatever. So he talks about it with his manager, and his manager comes over, and they're discussing it amongst themselves. And he says, no, it's going to be okay. And he swipes my card. And, of course, it comes back declined. And I said, well, how much did you put it for? He goes, $288. I said, I just told you I didn't have the extra 200. I wanted to, you know, adjust things on it. And I said, can we just, you know, cut down the days instead of 7 days, put for 3 days, and then I'll be back on Monday and I can just re-rent it, because then I can put, you know, by then more money will go on my card. Oh, no. You know, once we swipe it and it gets declined, it's too late. We can't do it again because of the terrorist acts and things like that. I said, that's ridiculous. And I said, you know what, I want to talk to your manager. He refused to let me talk. The supervisor refused to let me talk to his manager. He was really cold and uncaring. And literally, I got off that plane at 5:30. I didn't get out of there with the car until 9:30. I had
Wow.
to go jump through
Wow.
all kinds of hoops. Hertz would not help me. Finally, Capital One, a lady got on the phone with me, and she goes, if you transfer money right now, I can see to it that it's available, because they wouldn't give me my $200 back. I'm like, well, then give me my $200 back, and I'll go rent from one of your
Wow.
competitors. Oh, no, we can't get you that back until like 8 more days or whatever. To have 5 to 7 business days. I'm like, I'll be home by then. I need a
Right.
car. And so anyway, make a long story short, I transferred money. I managed to get a car from Budget, but I didn't get it to have it for the whole week because it was Friday night and they had gotten rid of all the economy cars, so I had to get an upgraded car that was more expensive. I was like, at least I could get to I was afraid I wasn't going to get to Witchfest. You know, my dad lived 30 miles away. It was all kinds. Friday night, the Friday before Witchfest, and I'm freaking out, but you know, I ended up managing to get the car. Anyway, I was so angry at this guy. He was just beyond rude. And, you know, I got my car and I ran out of there. And I invoked I didn't even think about it. It just came out. I invoked instant karma against you. You are going to pay immediately. Your karma is invoked. And I went home. I went to Witchfest, everything. And my sister borrowed my father's wife's car, and we went back to take the car back on. I had to bring it back on Tuesday because it was such a high rate. And I went over to hadn't gotten the guy's name, and I do plan to complain to Hertz. And so I wanted his name, so I went back over to the Hertz counter. He wasn't there. And I said to the person behind the counter, I lied, and I said, oh, you know, you had a guy here on Friday, and he was very helpful to me, and I wanted to tell his bosses, would you give me his name? And I described what he looked like, and he goes, oh, that's Leroy, but he's no longer working here. And I said, really? You know, he was just here on Friday. And they're like, he says, well, there was an incident. He's like, an incident? And he no longer work for us. And I said, that was his karma. Now he's out of a job for being so nasty. And he deserved that. You know, and I was thinking about, you know, what you said about this person who did this to you. Maybe because alcoholics and drug addicts have to hit rock bottom before they change, maybe do a rock bottom spell to have them hit rock bottom, so that with the intention that he learns the error of his ways and does something to heal the situations and all the people he has hurt. I would make like some sort of an abyss spell or something so that he hits rock bottom and he understands truly why this happened to him. Because if he doesn't understand why it happened, he's not going to fix the situation. You know, maybe you could combine it, like throw him in the abyss and have the bloodhounds jump in the abyss with him or something. You know, do something creative. But I do know, because there's addiction runs in my family, and I do know that you really do have to hit your rock bottom before you can really start to fight back. And I learned about rock bottom on Friday night when I went to, I'm going to tell you this. My sister's like, don't tell anybody this story. But I'm a very open person. I don't believe in being embarrassed about things. If my embarrassment can help somebody move forward with their life, I don't have a problem with that. But just to, you know, I told you I got there at 5:30. I didn't get out of there till 9:30. At one point, I was just so disgusted. First of all, I hate crying because I feel, even though I know it's ridiculous to say that crying makes me feel weak, it does. I've always had to be very strong, so I don't like to cry. And I particularly don't like to cry in public. I'll cry at a funeral because I feel like that's legal, like you're allowed to cry at funerals publicly. But otherwise, I don't like to cry in front of people. I like to maintain this air of strength. I don't like how it makes me feel. My eyes get red. I look awful. I just hate it. Well, at one point, I was outside. I was arguing with Hertz about my car rental, and had gone through literally 6 different people whose attitudes were basically, well, what do you want us to do? We're here in Oklahoma. One person said, well, it's not my job to help you. It was just awful. And then I finally get to the 7th person. And the 7th person, I said, look, you're the 7th person I've spoken to. Please, you've got to help me. I can't take much more of this. And she goes, honey, I think I'm the first person you talk to. You're the woman who's stranded at the airport, right? I was like, oh, my God. And she said, I wish I could do something. I can't do anything. And she hung up. And that was it. That was my emotional rock bottom. I
Oh
was
my
Mhm.
gosh.
exhausted. I hadn't slept the night before because my bride came to me at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I had worked the night before doing readings and stuff and packing. So I was dead tired. I was exhausted, and I was outside, and I just started sobbing. I was sobbing my head off, and people were walking by me. I didn't care. I'm just crying and crying and crying. And then all of a sudden, in mid sob, I realized I was holding on to a garbage can. And that was like, oh my God, I finally reached rock bottom. I'm crying in public, clinging to a garbage can, for Pete's sake. And that's it just snapped. It's like my ego said, you better snap out of it and get back into the fight right now. And I did. It was just like, I just like brushed myself off, marched back into the airport, was talking to the competitors, got the Capital One person on the line, and I got my car. And then I ended up congratulating. I said, you know what? I really reached an emotional rock bottom today. But I got back up into the fight. So I ended up patting myself on the back, and that's when I invoked that guy's karma. And now he no longer has a job. So I do believe in invoking
There
karma.
you go.
I really do. It
Yeah,
really helps.
absolutely.
Although
Absolutely.
I looked up every Hertz corporate officer. There's like 10 of them. They are all getting a handwritten note from me about the abysmal treatment that I received at the hands of their employees. But I do
Yeah.
think
Good
that
for you.
invoking
Good for
karma
you.
is really a good thing to do. All right, now
There
where
you
are
go.
we now?
Gotta do things. You gotta do it. If you don't, no one else will for you, so you have
Right.
to do it for yourself.
You
Stand
do.
up and step up. So congratulations.
Well, thank you.
Um, yeah. Goddess Shatan, I know
Yes.
that since you have helped so many with the knowledge you share in your books and your charitable contributions, I want to find out, how can others now help you in turn during this crisis of yours? Because no matter what we say, we all need help at some point.
That's
And
right.
if we can help in some way, let us know how we can help you.
Well, it would be great if people would go onto my Facebook page and find my crowdfunding link, which it should be at the top of the page. I just shared it a little while ago. And even if they can't donate financially, just share it. Share it on their own pages. Share it in groups that they're in on Facebook. Share it on their social media sites because it really helps with getting the word out if other people are helping to share your information and what you're going through. And it's it's hard trying to just do it on your own. And for every nice person that I've dealt with and who's been helpful, I've dealt with nasty, mean people who say, "Oh, this is a scam, this is a fraud," and it's like, okay, I have the court, documents sitting right, next to me on my desk saying that this, happened, that the drunk driver hit me. I was court or, given, restitution, uh, and then it never happened. So, it's hard when you're just doing it and you're dealing with just nice people who are willing to help you. But when you're doing it and you're getting backlash from people um, who will probably, in a couple of months, do their own crowdfunding site. It's really, really hard just to be one person and trying to get the word out that you need help. So if people want to share, my crowdfunding site page, then that would be great, and that would help me out a lot, a lot. Um, and if they are interested in any of the books that we've talked about tonight, they can go on Amazon.com and just type in Shetan Noir, and it'll bring up all the books that I've written. And I believe there's 6 of them, 6 including the belly dance book. And they can purchase a book if they're interested in the book and want to learn more about that book title.
That's awesome. And I did put the link to your Facebook page in the chat room so that people can see it and click on it and then be led to your crowdfunding page to help you with that as well. And
Thank you.
have
Awesome.
exhibited such inspiring.
That's wonderful.
After everything that you've been through, you're still sitting here, you're joking, you're being upbeat and optimistic and lively despite what you've been through. What do you do to stay so strong? Because a lot of witches, and we're going to go into a panel discussion, which we might have to do a part one, part two kind of a thing. 'Cause I'm looking at the time, but what do you do to stay so strong? How do you rise above it all? I guess is what I'm asking.
There's a couple of different things. I'm a big fan of the law of attraction, and if all you focus on in life is the negative, then that's all you're going to know is negativity, suffering, just the bad. So I really do try to put myself into a better mindset of looking forward to things. Being positive about things, and just try to keep my ranting and ravings to a few close friends who are willing to lend an ear and be like, yeah, life sucks, but we each, every morning we have to let our feet hit the ground and have God and the devil and everybody else looking up like, what the hell just happened? Oh, so and so's up. Guess we better make room. So it's it's really just your outlook on life. I try to give myself things to look forward to, and different goals each day to accomplish. Because if you don't give yourself things to do, if you don't give yourself things to look forward to, things to motivate yourself, then it's very easy to fall into that dark, negative space,
Right.
where you're just, you're depressed and you're negative and, life sucks and there's nothing good happening. And once you get into that behavior pattern, it's very, very hard to break out of. And negativity is very easy to fall into. You can either be very positive or you can be very negative. And people tend to go one way or the other. So I try to look towards the positive. I try not to let myself, stay in the negative field too long. One, because you just become self-indulgent with it. It's very easy to sit and feel sorry for yourself and, oh, woe is me. And I do believe in giving yourself self-care and taking care of yourself. So you can give yourself those moments where you're crying outside of a rental car place because they won't work with you, or you're dealing with ignorant drunk driver who refuses to be held accountable for his actions, and you can give yourself that measure of relief where you can just oh, you're so mad and you're so angry that this is going on, but at the same time you have to think of, okay, what am I going to do to move myself from this and get myself into a better state of mind.
Right.
Right.
I think that's awesome.
Wow.
That's an awesome attitude to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've just kind of, because we want to get to the panel discussion, I wanted to ask you, just any final words you'd like to share with our audience would be greatly appreciated. We appreciate your strength and how you're dealing with this. But anything else you'd like to add would be greatly welcome.
If people want to follow me more or learn more about any upcoming book projects or things that I have going on, they can find me either by Googling Shetan Noir, which is my name, or my current projects are all falling under the title of Into the Liminal Abyss. You can find out more about my paranormal and cryptozoology research under there. There's a blog that's currently up, and in October the podcast series will start. So you will find out more about me following those to Shetan Noir and Into the Liminal Abyss.
Awesomeness. Well, now we are going to jump into our panel discussion, and we want to talk about. First, we're going. I see this all the time on Facebook because I belong to a lot. Let's look like I'm sure we all do. I belong to a lot of pagan and witch groups and things like that. So I see a constant. Plus, all of my friends, or I should say, the bulk of my friends, are of the magical community, and I'm constantly seeing pleas for money problems, money issues. This has happened. The car's broken down. They have no money. Send us, send me some energy or send me some spell work or good vibes to help me out of this situation. And I've always puzzled over this because I'm no stranger either. I tend to, and it's on my own fault, I will accept responsibility that I put too much attention on other people's issues instead of my own. And then by the time I realize something wrong with me, everything's reaching critical mass and I got to jump in there and do something quick. But it just seems to me, and this is just my way of thinking, for the most part, the people that I know who are witches, they really spend a lot of time trying to help people, sending out energy and casting spells for them for free. They'll just do it because they said someone needs help, and so they will jump in to the fray and help them out. But it seems like in our own lives, we're always inundated with financial difficulties. And it would just seem to me that especially I'm a huge believer in the law of attraction, especially with all of the good works that we do, why does this seem to be a problem within the magical community where we can send energy out to resolve other people's problems, but then in our own lives we have to battle? And so I wanted to open up a discussion about that. And also another thing that I commonly see in the groups and on my friends' pages are serious medical issues that they are dealing with as well, like really serious stuff. Not like I got a cold today. I'm talking like real diseases and illnesses that are true challenges that they go through despite all of the good and help that they do. So I wanted to talk to you guys and also open up the discussion in the chat room. If we go a little long, that's okay. But I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on why this seems to be a problem amongst witches, that we have financial issues and health issues. What do you guys think? What do you goddesses think?
Well, Goddess Shetan, I'm going to let you go first. How's that?
Okay.
Go ahead and put the pressure on you.
Okay, no problem. I think a lot of it has to do with what you just talked about, is we get drawn into other people's situations and we expend so much resources, whether it's magical supplies in casting a spell to help them or our energy, that we really, without even realizing it, we spend, our magical budget on other people's problems, and then when it comes to working, doing workings for ourselves, it's like, I'm so tired today. I had this and this and this that I did, and I'll cast it later. And then the next day, well, it's the wrong day for casting that spell, so you wait a couple of days, and we always put ourselves last when we actually should be putting ourselves first, because at no point did any one of us take a vow of poverty.
Right.
A vow of, illness, so that we could be pagans, so that we could, have our magical beliefs. None of us have ever decided that, hey, it would be great to be homeless and sick and out on the streets. Nobody wants that. But we end up investing so much of our time and resources and energy on other people's problems that when it comes, back around to us and we need help, who do we have to turn to? A lot of times it falls on our own shoulders to make things better. And it's really hard when you've done so much to help others, and you realize that you were the strongest person helping that person, and now that it's come back, and you need the help, the only person you have to turn to is yourself.
Right. I do.
Yeah,
And I'm glad that
I
you
agree
said
with you
that.
entirely.
I'm
I
glad,
was looking at in the chat room, and Goddess Ty said we have to become self-invested. And part of I agree entirely with what you said, Goddess Shetan. The other thing I was thinking is that it's not just so much as we additionally to handing out our strengths and our energies to everyone else. We have this thing about everyone that we see, like either on Facebook or in person. They all tend to reach out to us. They all
Yes.
do. They reach
yes.
out with their hands, their mouths, their everything. And we, without thinking about it, respond. We
Hmm.
just do it. That's what we do
Right.
because we are the all doing, or whatever it is. Um, and it's not so much that there's nothing left for us, but half the time I think we are so exhausted from everything else we've done for everyone else. At the end of the day, we barely keeping our eyes open or whatever
Yes.
it is. We take a bath and
Yep.
we crawl in bed and we're like, "That's it, I'm done."
Yeah.
We don't have the energies left to even think about us per se. And I
Right.
love what Goddess Ty said in the chat room when she said self-invested. Because, and I remember, Goddess Rhonda, you mentioned that Christopher Penzak said that literally speaking, you have to pencil yourself in as an
Yes,
appointment.
you
So
do.
if anyone comes up with anything and says da 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 da, you say, "I'm so sorry. Let me just check a
Right.
moment," and you check it.
Yep.
I have a.
Yep.
I don't
Sorry,
mean
Yep.
to be
got an
mean,
appointment. Gee, wow, can't help
but
you
if
out.
you can set those times for everybody else, we have to do the same for us. And I'm saying it, but I don't do it. I am
And
saying exactly the words. I remember saying that I have to do it, and I have not just talking about it, but we have to actually apply it. And we
Right.
don't. I don't care what you
and
say, I can guarantee you don't. I'm not even
yep.
in your lives, in your bed, but I know you don't. You crawl into bed and you're like, tomorrow I'll do it. Or
Right.
the next
Right.
Right.
tomorrow I'll do it. And you keep putting yourself off. You're like the afterthought. And we have to stop treating ourselves as the afterthought, and we do it unconsciously
It is
Right.
because we're that
unconscious.
kind of people. You're giving and you're giving and you're giving, and we honestly, we don't think about ourselves. So if
Right.
you
And
don't
it,
think
and it
about yourself, you think about everybody else, and then you're wondering, wow, I did that for them and it worked out for them. But what about me? I'm like, what about you? Did you even give yourself a thought? You're the afterthought.
right.
Right.
And I know I'm guilty of it. I'm 100% guilty of it. I know your life enough to know, Goddess Rhonda, you are so guilty of it.
I
And
am guilty.
Goddess Shatan, I don't know you, but I know you're guilty of it. We
Yep.
all
And
do it. And then we sit back wondering why didn't this work for me? Or why is it not working out the way I want it to? Because you still didn't pencil yourself in.
yeah, and it's
You
so
haven't really expended the energy for it.
it's so very important to set boundaries and to your you know to make people respect those boundaries, because it's people will come to you, and I used to deal with this a lot in the belly dance community of and I used to use the term I'm so sick and tired of people bringing me their problems like bags of stray kittens, um, you
Right.
know because it would be like I'm sorry that you're having a fallout with so and so, or um, you need your music done, or you're having this issue, but I have my own things to work on. And it was very important to set boundaries, because otherwise everybody thinks that you're just there to work on their problems, and it's like, no, you need to learn to start helping yourself and to dealing things on your own, and you know basically fixing things yourself, because I have my own set of problems, my own set of issues that I need to deal with, that I need to work on and fix. And if I'm spending all of my energy on 5 other people's problems, then guess what? When it comes time for me to work on mine, well, this is the reason why, it's hard to get out of bed in the morning because I'm exhausted, and I've done so much to, fix other people's
Yeah.
problems, and it's very easy to go into that hero mindset of, I'm going to be everybody's hero, I'm going to be everybody's savior, I'm going to, fix this, and this, and then you do that for so long, and if you don't even realize that you're doing it, then, you'll things will build up, and suddenly you get smacked with, something that makes you sit down for a month, 6 months at a time, and you just have to focus on you.
Right.
And it happens more
Yeah.
often than people realize. When you've spent out so much energy and have worked on other people's problems, issues, and let people eat up your time, you have to realize time is the one thing that none of us will ever get back. So you have to budget it properly and make sure it's, whatever you're doing that you're spending your time on is something that you actually want to spend your time on, because
Yeah. Absolutely.
you will never get your time back. You can get energy
Yeah.
back by
Well,
sleeping, by eating,
yeah.
but time you can
There's
never get
also one
back.
other thing. Yeah, you're right. There was one other thing that I remembered too. I remember running rituals, literally, like either for full moon or whatever, for healing, and I'm talking about all these other people that needs healing, and I have lupus, and I'm so on the back burner with it. I'm talking about everybody's illnesses and how we send out energies to them, and then I've got Goddess Hectuba in the back going, Star, what about you? You have to
Yeah,
get that too. What about you? Stop sending it to everybody else. What about you? Like
right,
literally, she has to slap me upside the head. Star, don't send it out to everybody else. What about you? I have to be reminded, and we shouldn't have to be reminded about us
right.
because we so selflessly giving and giving and giving to everybody that our health. If you look at a lot of the magical community, and you said it, Goddess Rhonda, we belong in so many groups. We put in so many groups,
Hmm.
and you hear so many. I need so much help with whatever it is. Send me your healing energies. And what do? We all instantly do that.
That's right.
Whether we realize it or not, on Facebook, on a daily basis, we all do it, expending energy. When you do that,
Yep,
without realizing it, you are expending energies. Because you sit there and you think about that person for that moment and that time, and you're expending energies.
yep,
I'm not saying stop doing that. I'm just simply saying we need to slow it down, we need to cut back on it, and we have to step away. Because all those energies on Facebook, and we all practically live on Facebook, and I'm not one who lives there. I go for work, business, but I'm constantly being bombarded with people
yep,
privately. Forget about the group. Privately saying, Star, I need your help with this financially or health wise, and I'm sure it happens to you guys too. And we reach out to them, and or I just try to ignore them, and then they keep persisting. Hello, 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 and I'm like, are you kidding me? Do you not see me ignoring you?
right.
you know, and they do that, and then they apologize. That's the other thing. They apologize sometimes for interrupting you or taking your time away from you. And then sometimes I sit back and I go, you have apologized every single time that you interrupt me, but you do it nonetheless.
Yes, and
So
that,
there's a pattern there that we have to kind of say to ourselves that we have to stop. Just click the button. Sorry. I'm not
yeah,
even going to look. I hate
and
to
that's
say it.
and that's
I've begun to do that. I've begun to do that. Like hit the button off of Facebook or click off, and,
yep,
I'm sorry, I can't.
and that's
So,
You know,
like I've developed the mindset of being a polite badass bitch. And it sounds kind of mean, but like when I'm out even walking my little dog and people, oh, can I pet her? Can I pet her? No, you can't. She's my dog. I don't want you touching her. Particularly little kids, because they always want to grab her. They always want to, no, do not touch my dog. Leave my dog alone. And I do it as politely as possible, but it's something that I've started doing more and more of being polite about it, but no, I'm going to be a bitch. I'm not willing to spend my energy or my time on your issues. I might give you advice. I might, but that's all, that's all I'm going to do. I am not going to invest myself into your problems because they are your problems, not mine. Now, if I see where it's
Right.
going to become my problem, then, I might help you out a little bit more. But, people really need to if you're going to ask for help or you're going to ask other people for help, you have to make sure you're doing the work on your end that it's going to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just don't go, keep going back to somebody over and over again. Well, it didn't work. Can you do this?
Yeah.
Can you do that? No, because
Yeah.
now you're burning up my resources of, my time and energy, and that I could be spending on something else. And
Yeah.
you kind of have to get out of that hero mindset and kind of be more in the villain mindset of no. There's that saying that's going on. I've seen it on Facebook 100 times. Not my circus, not my monkeys.
Right.
It's an old Polish saying, but I usually like to tell people, not my circus, not my monkeys. My monkeys throw shit. So, you know, if you're going to bring problems or you're going to have problems, then learn to deal with them.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you really think that? I don't think, what you're saying is true, and I am totally guilty of not putting myself on my own priority list. Just like you just said, you're getting out there and you're helping other people, and now you're exhausted, and I'll say, you know what, I'm so exhausted. Finally, at the end of the night, I can put my feet up, and then I'll get a call that says, can you help me? And I'll rise to the challenge. Okay, what can I
Yep.
do to help you? Meanwhile, I'm exhausted and my own stuff, and it's just a natural thing that I do, and I know it's something that I have to combat. But I'm also wondering, though, because many of us became witches after being raised in a church and listening to, I don't know about, you guys' churches, but in the Southern Baptist Church, they literally scream at you from the pulpit while they're waving their Bible at you and telling you you're just a sinner and you're basically never going to be worth anything. You're a sinner. You're always going to be a sinner, and it's only by the grace of God that you're alive, and Jesus died for you, and money is the root of all evil, and it's going to be easier for a camel to go through the head of a needle than for a rich man to get into heaven. And, as I'm a little kid and I'm very, open to listening to all of this stuff, I'm impressionable. I'm wondering also, do we carry a subconscious belief that money is evil or having money is evil because that concept was beaten into us in the churches because I can quote, money is the root of all evil and the whole thing with the camel and blah, blah,
Mm-hmm.
blah. And Jesus went into the money changer's place and knocked over all the tables. And so we could have been trained, our subconscious could have been trained because our subconscious creates our life script while we were kids and we follow that. Do we
Yeah.
have still a subconscious belief somewhere inside of us that's causing a conflict that we are supposed to be poor? And the whole image that they give you of Jesus, wandering around, basically living off the goodness of strangers as he goes from place to place. In today's culture, like, wow, he was really poor. He just had his robe and he's wandering in the desert and people are giving him handouts. But, back then, you didn't need money back then. If you had someone to put you up and a roof over your head and someone bringing you food, you were wealthy. He was actually pretty well off when you think about that because he was totally and completely cared for with people feeding him and housing him and doing things for him. But the image that they put in your mind is of this poor man wandering through the desert, being self-sacrificing and healing everybody and turning water to wine and doing all these magical things as the magician that he was, as the witch that he was, because he was a witch. And, this image has been implanted into us, and I'm wondering, are we having a problem overcoming the subconscious belief that in order to be a spiritual and good person, that you must not focus on money, that you're pretty much supposed to be poor. And you see this emphasized even, I've seen this a million times if I've seen it once, where people will say, oh, you're not supposed to charge money for what you do. You're not supposed to do that, which your
Yes.
ability is a gift, and you're supposed to gift it to everybody else. And I'm like, if I grew up with the ability where I had the natural inclination to be a doctor or an attorney or a pharmacist, none of those people who are born gifted just give it away. Or if I was a singer like, Aretha Franklin, I wouldn't just
Right.
stand up there singing for nothing. I want people to buy my records and pay me. Why are we the only group expected to use our natural abilities for free? I've never understood that either, but there is a strong mindset from people who are like, oh no, we can't use our abilities to make money. We're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
Bad, bad, bad. And I think that goes back to the Christ concept that they implanted into us, because in their mind, Christ did all this stuff for free. Well, he really, he was getting housed, he was getting food, he wasn't out there starving to death. What happened to him at the end was a nightmare, but leading up to that, he was taken care of. But I think we have retained this subconscious belief that money is bad. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah.
I have
Go
I
ahead,
have
sweetie.
I have a couple of different, opinions about it because, like I said, I always had conflicts with the teachings of the church, and one of my biggest ones was, okay, you're telling me that wealth and money is bad, and yet what are you begging us for every single week? What are you demanding the most of us from? Our money, our hard-earned money that comes from our pockets, to pay you to tell us that money is bad
Right.
and the root of all evil. Okay,
Fiction.
so what more of a conflict of interest can you have, than, okay, you want me to take money out of my pocket, put it in your red velvet lined gold dish, and pass it to the front of the church to pay you and this church to repeat back to me that money is bad and evil, and yet how are the bills of this church and this pastor being paid? Oh, out of money out of my pocket.
Right.
So my thoughts of, that the church is, oh, money is, money is evil and bad for us to have, but the church can have as much of it as it wants.
Right.
Yes. It's no
They can,
longer evil or anything because it's been passed on to them.
they can nickel and dime it, us all they want, as long as their pockets are lined with gold. And how many um, pastors, preachers, evangelists have been, brought up on fraud charges or on extortion, or where they've embezzled money from the church, or they've taken so much because, well, they had access to it, and they figured, well, it's my money, and no, it's not your money. It's the congregation's money. That should be going out into the community to help fix the community. It shouldn't be going to line your pockets. So my whole thing with, with being taught that, or the church, trying to teach us that money is the root of all evil. Well, that's nice that you say that, but I'm sure you'd be pretty mad if I, put food stamps in the donation, plate.
Or the tithe. Or any of
Yeah,
those things for that matter. I would not be able to give it then. If it's so evil, I don't have it. I didn't make it. So
yeah,
I don't have it. Now it's evil.
Right.
Very
yeah,
interesting, And it's so funny because Goddess Rhonda, that you mentioned about our abilities and having people pay for it and things like that. I have seen it in so many groups recently, from so many different paths, from whether they're voodooist or hoodooist or whatever it is, whatever spiritual path, and they coming up and they're going, I have to ask everybody across the board, what do you think of this? Should I be paid for my abilities and what I do? And everybody, long discussions in so many different groups. And of course, you should be paid for it. But the fact that the question is even being brought up shows, like you said, that innate, predisposed I don't know, programming that they've done to us since we were little kids that we can't seem to get away from, no matter what religions we've chosen in the future.
Right.
You know, they've got us so programmed to believe that, money is wrong or you're not supposed to be paid for it. It's all supposed to be charitable giving or charitably given. And I am sorry, but every priest and every pastor, they're all paid. Nothing
Hmm.
is charitable about anything they do. They're all
Right.
being paid.
You have to
So
pay them
I
to
don't
do their
know.
weddings.
Yeah.
You have to pay
Hmm?
them, but you have to pay, them to do weddings, funerals,
Yes.
um, anything like that. So if they're allowed to charge, then why aren't we? And I come from, I'm pagan, but I'm also, I was a performer for a long time. And one of the biggest things that aggravated me was, well, I can't pay you anything for you performing tonight, but you'll get great exposure.
Yeah.
You'll get great exposure. No, I'm sorry. It cost me gas money to come here. I expect at least gas money to leave.
Right.
And so, coming
Unless
from
that
that mindset, I can say no. We deserve to be paid for our services.
That's right.
unless it's something that you agreed upon before,
Right.
like for an exchange of something, because no matter what, something has to be given in reciprocation.
Hmm.
That's right.
Whether it's something that you have to have agreed upon this from beforehand,
Right.
because no matter what, in ancient times or whatever it is, they were bringing that chicken, or they were bringing that
That's right.
pig, or
The
they were
egg
bringing
or
they were
cow.
bringing something, or that cooked dish, because that was the exchange of the times.
That's
Yes.
right.
They were bringing something. Nothing was ever free. Get that out of your heads. They were never
Right.
free. They were always given something in exchange for their whatever they're doing.
I mean,
And if you agree with it, like how you as a performer, Goddess Shaitan,
mhm.
if you agreed to that beforehand, in exchange just for this particular thing, we're doing whatever, but not after the fact when you've agreed differently and
Right.
they tell you after the fact, that's unethical,
Yeah.
you
And
know.
see,
Um,
to me, think back to early New Orleans, when you had, your hoodoo and your voodoo practitioners. Do you think anyone in their right mind who feared for their lives would show up at Marie Laveau's door with nothing to offer her and ask her
Right.
to do something for her? No, no, they would have to be crazy or out of their minds to do that. You didn't show up without anything to offer.
Right.
Now, whether she chose to do,
exactly.
working for you, with what you had to offer,
Nothing.
that was up to her. But you didn't show up at a practitioner's door without anything to offer them as a payment, for what you're asking. But so many times, especially if if you teach workshops or you're a presenter or you've written a book, so many times you'll just have random people popping up, through Messenger or email saying, "Oh, hey, I read your book or I took your class. Can you do this, this, and this for me?" And it's like, okay, I don't really know you. I don't know your situation. Um, why would I, feel compelled to do anything more than, give you some advice on it?
Right.
Yeah, no, no, no. See, like for instance, even at Witch Fest, when we do it, right, Goddess Rhonda,
Mhm.
we may, with some presenters, we say to them, in exchange for this, if you guys could present a workshop, but then you guys end up doing so well money-wise because of all the promotion we did, all of us, it works out. You have
Yeah.
to be able to reciprocate something where, and if you notice, I go around to everybody going, "Are you all right? Did you do good?
Yeah.
Meaning did you do well today?" And they're all like, "Yay!" Big happy grins on their faces,
Right.
and that made me feel so great walking around to each of you guys, and the beatific smiles on your faces, and you're like, "But I'm really busy. I can't even go pee. I can't do anything. I'm really busy." You know, because you're doing so well, and I'm glad that you're there, and you're glad that you're there. You know what I mean? There has
Mhm.
to be an exchange. It's just a reality of
Yeah.
life because nothing is really ever for free. Nothing is.
Right, and
you
that's
know. So
that,
that's what it is.
and that's a problem that that I've seen here in the Michigan pagan community of different events wanting people to come in and teach, do performances, do rituals, and yet they're not even willing to give you a free vending spot.
Right.
Oh
They're
wow.
asking
No,
you to teach a couple of workshops. Me being a belly dance performer, they always wanted me to perform, and yet they weren't willing to give me a free spot for vending. No, they wanted to charge me
oh
$50
wow.
for that. So
Wow.
it's like, okay, so
No,
basically you want
no,
me to
they gotta give
pay.
you something.
You want
They
me to
gotta give
pay
you
to
something.
come
They have
teach.
to give you something that you can earn something for the day that you were there, that you put in all that time.
Yes.
It's only, common courtesy, and that's what I mean. And that way everybody walks away happy and everybody wants to come back because they're
Hmm.
like, wow, look what I got from this, but still at the same time I gave as well.
Right.
It has to be reciprocal. It just makes sense.
It
And
does.
that I think is something that, with a lot of different events. I don't know how it is, where you guys live, but that's what the main, one of the biggest problems that we're running into in the Michigan community is convocation generally is pretty good because they will give you a discount on your admission for however many workshops you teach. That's how most conventions work up here, whether it's pagan, whether it's a computer, sci-fi, open source, you know, convention. But the other events, if you're asking me to come in and teach one or more workshops, plus do a performance. Oh, but you want to fill the time, so you want me to bring in a couple of my belly dance friends to also perform for free, and then that I have goods to sell, but you want me to pay for my vending spot on top of what I'm giving you for free. To me,
No, no, no. It
that's a
doesn't
bit
work that way.
ridiculous.
Yeah, no, no.
That is.
Let's put it this way, for Witch Fest, I had a bunch of very happy people. I might not,
Yes, you
very
Then you're
happy
doing it
people, and that
right.
was the intent.
it
Then
was.
you
It was a
right.
really. It was a great day. The Witch Fest was just. It's one of the things I look forward to all year because it's just a magical thing. Now, also, I wanted to talk about. We talked about various scenarios for money issues. What about health issues? That's another problem I see all the time. Is that people have, I mean, really serious health issues. And even still, with those health issues, they're still out there on the front lines helping other people out and doing for people and helping people. You would think that with all of the work that we do, that we should be in actual really good health. But again, and I personally have Lyme disease. Goddess Star has lupus, and so I'm wondering again, does
I
that?
have a pulled hamstring.
And Goddess Shetan has a pulled hamstring. And I'm just wondering, though, does that go back to us not taking better care of ourselves because we're constantly caregiving to everyone else?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, I
Because
think
I
so.
do work when
I
I'm
think
at
it
the
happens
point
a
of
lot.
exhaustion. Even when I get my warning signs, my warning signs in my body are saying, you know what, Rhonda, it's too much. Stop now. My typical warning sign is I'll start getting chills for no reason. And I will
Yes,
just say, you know
yes.
what, I'm going to stop, but first let me just help this one person over here. Or I'll say, I'm going to go and lay down, and that's it. Before I can turn my phone off, the phone rings, or I get a text, or can you help me? Can you help me? And then I feel guilty if I don't help them. And so I think, I could probably be in much better health if I did set those boundaries and say, okay, you know what, after 7 o'clock, I'm no longer available. I'm turning my phone off. Everyone's just going to have to wait until tomorrow or whatever. So I
Hmm.
do know that a lot of the problem is I don't take good enough care of myself because, as usual, I'm more concerned with everyone else.
And this is where the self-care comes in so high of a demand. You have to give yourself self-care. Um, I am a strong believer in that because you can't pour from an empty cup. And if if you are so exhausted at the end of the day that you're too tired to even eat because of everything you've done for everyone else, and all you want to do is crawl into bed and then have to, crawl back out of bed, to deal with something else, then you're not doing yourself any favors. You're actually setting yourself up, for more problems. And so the self-care is so important to take care of yourself first and to let yourself have rest. Let yourself indulge in good meals, in nutrition, and, give yourself your own personal time.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. We have a tendency to do that. The only thing I've seen working health-wise is I do have a tendency to literally say I do not have the time to be sick. I do not have the time to be in pain or any of those things with my lupus. And a lot of times I do have to say it works to the extent of where I find myself doing more and more each day, and I'm getting, sometimes I get the flare-ups, but usually I tend to be almost like it's being pushed aside. I'm not sure if that's is necessarily a good thing. On one hand, it feels like I'm getting better, um, because I'm basically saying I really don't have the time for this. So either, do what you have to do or get on with life, because I literally talk to it and I'm like, I really don't have the time to deal with you today. Or something like that, because this is what I have to do, kind of a thing. Um, and I think to some extent that works. It may not work every day and it may not work for everything or everyone, but I think to some extent it does work, because I do see myself pushing beyond certain things or forgetting for the moment that I have this illness, and just moving on and for a moment, and then I realize, oh my goodness, I've been walking around just fine for a moment there. I'm good. You know what I mean? But we do have to, I don't know, set aside time for us. I think that idea maybe Goddess Rhonda mentioned of turning our phones off at a certain time, or not answering the calls at a certain time. Something. We have to start literally, you know, compartmentalizing things and saying, okay, enough is enough, pushing things aside and things like that. But
Mm-hmm.
health issues are a big deal with a lot of people in the magical community.
Mm-hmm.
That and of course money, the two biggest things.
Yes.
I noticed in the chat room, Goddess J said that she's noticed those who get too obsessed with money or money spells seems to have more money problems. And in some ways, I've seen that. I mean, I'm sure you guys can also say you've seen that happens too. I know people who've told me many a times, oh my gosh, I am so amazing with money. I've got this going on and that going on and the other going on, and how much it all comes to them wonderfully. And then months later I meet them and they're like, I don't know what's going on. You need to help me, Star. I'm having money issues. And I'm the one who, I honestly don't think about money much. I don't know about you guys or goddesses. I think I move on and I simply say, I am going to have the money for all the things I need to have. I'm going to, whether I need to get that flight or that hotel or that different thing, and somehow it just happens. I don't know. It
I
just
find
always seems to happen and falls into place. I don't know if that happens with you guys.
Yeah, it does. I
nine,
always have what I need.
nine out
Right?
of
It just seems to
10
fall into place.
Yeah, that usually works out, but then like I said, 9 out of 10 times that works, but it's that 10th time where the universe is like, I think you might not be grateful enough for what you've gotten, and you get that yank, and suddenly you're like, crap, what did I do? And so you have to rethink, your what you've been asking for and what you've been wanting, and okay, have I, what has my mindset been? Am I taking things for granted? Am I, appreciating things? But there is another side to all of this, and with the money issues and the health problems, and that is, and we haven't really talked about it, is when other people within the community are seeing or perceiving that you are doing really, really well financially, or that you
Yeah.
are, you are in a great place, and they want to destroy that.
Yeah.
There is a lot of jealousy within our community of people
Yeah.
who want to be or want to have what you have, no matter how hard you've worked for it, no matter how many sacrifices you have dealt with to get where you are. They don't see that. They just see where you are successfully or health-wise, and they want to take that away. And
Right.
I think that is an issue that is not being talked about within the pagan community, of the sabotage that goes on with other people casting spells to take away what they perceive somebody has.
Right. That is
Presumption. A
true.
lot of presumption going on there. Yeah.
That is true. But also, we also have to look at it as the universe is always going, I think, to continually challenge us. If they don't take away or force us to have to step up our games, learn more, be more resourceful, take it to the next level, we're all just going to sit back and maybe just be too complacent instead of working on our soul's evolution and do, doing things that is going to force us to take things to the next level, or learn a new trick, or learn a new technique, or learn a new modality, or things like that. So I don't think that we're supposed to just sit here and have money rain on us and be happy, because we tend to learn and grow through conflict. When everything is going well, we don't really do too much because we're enjoying the good times. But when things are going badly, then you're taught to think, you have to problem solve, you have to be more resourceful, you have to find more resources. You really have to work to get to the next level, to kind of graduate to the next level. So I think that also has a lot to do with it too. I think we as spiritual workers are held to a higher standard, and we really can't just sit back on our past laurels. I had a guy I used to work with, and in the mortgage industry, and I had helped him out on a loan. I did some extra work for him and helped him to get the loan pushed through. And then the next day he came to me with another thing. And I said, didn't I just help you with all your other stuff that you needed me to do for you? And he goes, well, you can't win today's ball game with yesterday's home run. And I was like, wow, you know what? That's actually true in life, is that we're constantly in the ball game. And so we have to constantly find new ways to dodge the ball or get to the base or whatever it is. And if we're not going to do that on our own because we're happy with having a good time, then the universe is going to take it into its own hands, make an executive decision, and say, okay, the only way we're going to get Rhonda to take things to the next level is we start taking things away from her and force her to really put her mind to work and problem solve and fix this and do all these things. So I think that has a lot to do with it too, because as we grow up in life and we go from nursery school to grade school to high school to college, the lessons don't get any easier as we pass each class. They get harder and harder and harder. And so I do think that we are also under spiritual tests to show the universe what we can do. I always say we're in like a spiritual internship, because we're going to be the ones that are going to be guardian angels and spiritual help and things like that later. And we have to show what we can do under tremendous odds. What can we do? And I think that has a lot to do with it too. I actually tell people that if you are inundated with a lot of problems, then take it as a compliment, because the universe sees that you are spiritually mature and they know that you can handle this. They know that you're at a certain level that you can take this and run with it. So you're not supposed to sit and wallow, but get into the fight, accept the challenge, and roll with it. Because when things are going nice and easy, and the universe might say, well, we can't do this to this person because they're not able to handle this. So we're just going to go ahead and let them glide through life until they become more spiritually mature. But because we've been through on the front lines for so many lifetimes, they're like, excuse me, Goddess Star, Goddess Shetan, Goddess Rhonda, it's time for you now. We're going to go ahead and take you to the next level. And don't worry that we're taking all your money away and we're going to give you all these problems. We'll fix that over in the end. We just want to see what you can do with this and how you're going to handle it and what you're going to learn from all this and what lessons you're going to take from all this. So I think that has a lot to do with it too, that we are also learning important spiritual lessons that is helping our souls to evolve by having to face all of these challenges. You know, it's bad enough you're trying to help other people, trying to help yourself, and you're in pain from your illnesses and things, and you've got to deal with that, heal yourself with one hand while you're doing Reiki on everybody else. It is a challenge, but it's one that we accepted when we took on this life. We are spiritual warriors, and, you know, getting out there on the front lines is never easy, and we have to learn. If we get shot in the leg, we can't just fold up our tent and go home. We have to keep fighting. We have to now fix our leg and keep fighting as a soldier. So I do think that we are also tested on our spiritual strength, and it's not to harm us, but to force us to take things to the next level, to really have to think things out, research, try different modalities, how whatever it is that you do in order to keep ourselves afloat in this war that we are fighting for everybody else and ourselves. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you. I think a lot of it, we cannot necessarily help ourselves in a way where we hear and we see things and we try to always do and act upon it, and it's just part of our nature, and we have to learn to just kind of step back, and that's why I agree with everything that you just said. So we have to learn to step back and take care of us. What do you think, Shetan?
Well, there was something that I had learned back when I first started going to the spiritualist church, and it was something that someone had said that had really registered with me, and that's before you're born into each life, you choose the life lessons that you are going to learn. You choose the life before you're actually born, and I've always thought about that and thought, when I hear about other people's tragedies in life and what they've endured and what they've survived through, of why if you knew that was going to be your life before you picked it, why would you go through with that? And I think a lot of that has to do with, so, some of us want to see, it's like, giving our personal best each and every day. Seeing, okay, this set of obstacles are in front of me. How am I going to solve this? How am I going to get through this? How am I going to deal with this? And I think if you're coming through, from that mentality of you pick the life before you're born, with knowing beforehand what you're going to face, but once you get into this life, once you're born into this life, you don't know what's coming. That knowledge is taken back away from you. So you have to really, it's a whole new learning, curve, and you have to learn how to think on your feet and how to make things happen and how to do things. And so I think that, that comes into play of, you're set with a certain amount of obstacles and problems in life, and either you're going to curl up in a ball and let everything overwhelm you and eat you alive, or you're going to put your foot down and pick up a stick and beat the crap out of everything and, get through it.
I do subscribe to that theory, and I chastise myself about it. It's like, you know what? I chose this life, and I'm a very impatient person, so I said, you know what? Just give me everything all at once, please, so I can just get it over with. Just pile it on. I want to get it over with all in one lifetime. I know I set this up. I know I did. And I'm not really complaining. I'm actually very grateful for my life and all the things that I've experienced as challenges and all. I wouldn't change anything. But it can be very tough on us, and it kind of, when I see so many people in the groups reaching out for help, and they're having this problem, or their family is having this problem, and, help me, help me, help me, it makes me wonder, the various different, just to discuss the various theories of what's going on. And I think all of the theories that we've discussed tonight are valid. Everything is really about the person and what their personal experience is and why they are personally going through some things. The people that are doing 5,000 prosperity spells might be here to learn about money, to learn about not having money, to learn how to survive without it, or to really assess assess value as opposed to worth. And so there could be all kinds of custom reasons why we go through what we go through. But I just wanted to have a talk about it, to air some theories out, or maybe help other people who are listening to this take now a different look and a perspective at what it is that they're going through. And maybe, because I truly believe that once we learn the lesson of the challenges that the challenge is trying to teach us, that challenge does go away. And so if you can really think about, what am I learning from all of this? What have I learned? How has this benefited me in whatever way, or how has it hurt me? What have I learned from all this? Then you can maybe get a better bead on it, and then you can finally just let it go, and then that challenge will go away.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I know that it is quickly approaching midnight on the East Coast. And
yes.
I
We
really
have to
wanted
get
to do
going.
this panel show. I didn't want to do a part two. I wanted to include everything in here. So I want to thank all of you. I want to thank you, Goddess Shetan. I want to thank everyone in the chat room, Goddess
Yeah.
Stars always, for joining us. I know we haven't been here for a couple of weeks. I went on vacation and we had some other things going on, but I just really missed you guys, and I'm so glad. My whole face lit up when I saw you back in the chat rooms. Like, my family's back together, and here
I
we
know.
are. And so thank you for giving
They
us
rock.
the
The people in the
2 week
chat
break.
room rock. They really do.
You really do. You guys, you support us, and we are just so grateful for that. And thank you again, Goddess Shetan. I hope you'll join us again, maybe for some more panel discussions.
Oh, I'd love to.
And so with all
Absolutely.
that said, we will see you next week, and merry meet, merry part, and
Part
merry meet
and
again.
merry meet again.
Yay! So thank you so much, everyone, for all the... Oh, and
Have a good night, everyone. Thank you
our
so much.
closing, hail and farewell, our lords and ladies of the elements and directions. We thank you so much for your kind service, and return your energy back to source. And blessed be. Happy full moon, everyone. May all of your
Right, yes.
come into fruition, and may you soak up all this awesome energy, and may it keep you strong during the wane. And we will see you again next week. Thank you, everyone, and have a great night.
Bye.
Have a good night, everyone, and thank you. And thank you, Goddess Shetan, again.
Oh, you're
Okay,
welcome. Thank
Goddess
you.
bless.
I'd love to be on again.
We will definitely have
All
you
right,
back.
take care.
Thank you.
You're
All right,
welcome.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.